Welcome back to Much on this Planet, but I'm Iconic, where we embark on a journey of discovery, compassion, and empowerment. In today's episode, we delve into the heart of a matter that affects us all: mental health. In southern Africa, amidst the vibrant landscapes and rich cultural tapestry, lies a silent struggle that often goes unheard. It's a struggle of individuals grappling with their mental well-being, navigating through a maze of stigma, societal expectations, and cultural norms. But within this struggle, there's also resilience, hope, and a growing movement towards change. Today, we shine a light on the incredible work being done to break down barriers and foster a culture of understanding and support for mental wellness in Southern Africa. Joining us on this enlightening journey is a remarkable individual whose passion and dedication have ignited a movement for change. Please welcome Mercy Mimi, the visionary founder of iMind, a beacon of hope in the pursuit of mental wellness. Today, we'll explore the cultural nuances, challenges, and triumphs promoting mental health in Malawi. From stigmatization efforts to community outreach programs, we'll uncover the story of resilience and empowerment that are shaping the future of mental health advocacy in the region. So, whether you're a seasoned advocate, someone navigating their own mental health journey, or simply curious to learn more, I invite you to join us on this transformative exploration. Together, let's break the silence, challenge the stigma, and embrace a future where mental wellness is not just a goal, but a fundamental human right. Before we get started, grab yourself a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's get into it. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and your background?
So my name is Mercy Mkandawire. I am a mental health advocate from Malawi. I run an organization called iMind, which pretty much deals with promoting mental health among the youth. We try to use evidence to try to carry out research to ensure that we implement more participatory interventions within our community. So I've been running the organization for over 6 years now because I founded the organization whilst I was in college. And since then, it's been just trying to implement more interventions and to see how best I can contribute to the mental health landscape in Malawi. I'm also a Zurich Foundation scholar. I would say alumni because I was a scholar in 2022, but I'm now an alumnus. And I'm also a One Young World ambassador. So in a nutshell, that's how I can just share in terms of who I am and what I do.
Amazing. What inspired you to establish Our Mind? And what motivated you to focus specifically on promoting mental health and mental wellness among youth in Malawi and Southern Africa?
For me, it was mostly because of my personal experience. When I recall back to the years when I was in college, I had a very I went through a very difficult time. I found it really difficult to associate with others, with my friends. So at the end of the day, that I didn't know that I was even distressed during that time, but I was actually really facing a lot of challenges to even connect with my peers, to even concentrate in class. It was very difficult. So when I had shared with one of my friends, he told me that what you're experiencing might be related to a mental health condition called social anxiety. So that's when I was sort of inspired to start researching more about mental health and mental health conditions, just to know exactly what was going on with me and find ways to ensure that I recover. So from that whole experience, that's when now the idea came to mind because I kept on engaging with my friends, sharing my experience, and I would hear stories from them as well about the challenges that they are going through. And we decided that we had to do something about it, starting from our college. We needed to do an awareness, a movement sort of to increase awareness on mental health issues. From there, we thought, okay, we have done something on college, but what about the other young people out there in the community, in the communities? How can we reach out to them? So that's when now we decided that we had to start the organization iMind so that it can be more sustainable. We can reach out to a lot of young people in a more sustainable way, in a more structured manner. And from then on, we've been implementing projects, but it came from that place of me suffering from social anxiety and me sharing that with my friends and realizing that I had to do something to change the situation in my country.
What unique insights or perspectives do you bring to the field of mental health advocacy, and how do you inform your approach as the founder of iMind?
I think it's always important, as someone who has lived experience, it's always important to bring in that perspective of the unique experience that I've had, because I understand now how difficult it is, for example, in Malawi to access mental health services. I've gone through that period in time when it was very difficult for me to even find a mental health service provider. And I know that a lot of people in Malawi don't have that knowledge of where to go to, where to find the resources for support. So I think because I've had this, and I come from a background of, I studied business administration in college. So this brought about an element of me trying to find innovative ways. And I also practice as a marketer. So those elements of me knowing these other ways of innovating around certain ideas that I have, it helps me a lot to come up with interventions that relate to young people, to know how best to communicate to young people so that they can understand the things that I am advocating for. So that whole perspective, me not being maybe a mental health professional, but more of a mental health advocate, has helped me to really frame the whole project, our projects, to be more relatable to young people in my country.
Can you discuss any significant milestones or achievements of iMind since its inception, and how have these accomplishments impacted the communities you serve?
We've had a lot of accomplishments. One that comes to mind really quickly is our program. We have a program called Fresh Minds radio program, which mostly it targets, the whole of Malawi, because radio has a way of just reaching out to a lot of people, even in the rural areas. So this is a project that we started in 2020. And we invite mental health professionals, celebrities, and people with lived experience of mental ill health to just share what they are going through, to share some insights to the listeners so that they can know, for example, where they're supposed to go to if they have a mental health condition or if they have certain signs and symptoms. This has reached out to over 1 million people in Malawi because we used one of the radio stations that has like a nationwide coverage called Times Radio. And we've also been able to reach out to other people who are in other countries in the diaspora, like in South Africa, because they also air the program online. So this program, has been very impactful, and it has also helped us to bring in certain elements as well, like listening clubs. We have listening clubs where young people come together to share experiences. Currently, we have 4 of them in Malawi, and comprising of about 82 members. So these people, when they meet, the club members, when they meet, they share their struggles, for example, how they have maybe overcome certain mental health challenges. And this has created safe spaces for them to not be afraid to talk about the issues that they are going through, and to know that there's always someone who can provide that support. So in general, I would say the Fresh Minds program has been very important, has been very impactful, because it has run for 3 seasons now, and we've reached out to a lot of people. So I'm proud of that accomplishment.
What values or principles guide your leadership of iMind, and how do you shape the organization's missions, programs, and initiatives?
The values that we mostly hinge on, I would say we have, for example, empathy, we promote empathy. We want people, when they are sharing their stories, they should be able to feel comfortable and to maybe even relate to certain stories that they hear from maybe their fellow club members, just an example. So empathy is one of the things that we promote. We also value confidentiality. I think this is very important, especially in our context, because a lot of people are afraid of sharing maybe information due to gossip. Sometimes when you share information, you hear somebody else, outside talking about it, and we try to ensure that whenever we are delivering our services, we incorporate that aspect of confidentiality so that people feel comfortable and they feel that they can share, be it with a peer supporter or a mental health professional within our network, with anybody really on all of our platforms. And we also really focus more on innovation because we're dealing with young people. So we want our programs to really just, meet the needs of young people, whatever it is, maybe be it digitally, be it in person. We want to be able to create those kinds of solutions that really resonate with young people and find them at their point of need. So those are some of the values that we are work towards, as well as encouraging participation. Whenever we're doing our programs, we don't want to just go into a community and say, this is the solution. No, we want our audience or our clients to suggest to us whatever it might be that they would want us to into our program. So mostly on participation, we encourage our members or our clients, I would say, whoever it might be, to also give us ideas. What would they want us to incorporate in our programs, so that when we are bringing that solution into that community, they now are able to embrace it. They are able to sustain that solution, and to just encourage continuity of that solution. So participation of our target audience is very important to us, and it informs our programs and whatever we do, mostly also lying mostly on a foundation of research, because that also has been a very crucial element in whatever we do.
Looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future of iMind, and what steps do you envision taking to further advance mental wellness and destigmatize mental health difficulties in Malawi and beyond?
For us, in terms of the future, because we've seen how the program Fresh Minds has been very, very impactful in our community, especially the listening clubs, or I would call them now mental well-being clubs, because we are trying to transition them into that. We want to incorporate more projects into more programs, more activities within the clubs that we are running. So in terms of the future, that's what we actually envision: more clubs being introduced in Malawi, in our school systems, in secondary schools, colleges, in primary schools. Because when we go to these schools, we notice that there are really not that many structures to support the mental health of young people within these schools. So that's one of the areas that we would want to really focus on in the upcoming years, I would say in the short term. But when we are looking at the longer term, now we would want to do more, we would want to have our very own center as an organization, an iMind center. Our slogan, our tagline is healthy mind, healthy body. So we try to incorporate elements of physical health, as well as mental health and social health. So for this iMind Center, we would want to sort of establish a mental health clinic that will mostly be dealing with complex mental health conditions. And we would also want to have a sports complex to encourage physical activity among young people. And we would also want to incorporate an innovation hub that will also help young people to find something to do, to innovate, come up with business ideas, so that at the end of the day, it should be a comprehensive approach to us providing support to the youthful population here in Malawi, especially those that have mental health conditions.
How do you perceive the current landscape of mental health awareness and resources in Southern Africa compared to other regions globally?
Resources are very, very limited in Southern Africa. Starting from the human resources, for example, I look at Malawi, just in general, we have one government mental health institution, like a tertiary mental health institution. So we have a population of over 18 million people, and every person who might have a mental health condition and needs a referral to a higher institution at the highest level, they might have to be, referred to this one institution by the government. Of course, there are also some other institutions privately run, but this would mean that people will have to pay. And already there's this perception in Malawi that therapy is expensive. People don't want to pay for maybe meeting up with a mental health professional. So already there are these challenges in terms of access to mental health services due to stigma on one part and due to a lack of resources on the other part. Even the mental health professionals that I'm talking about, they are not that many. The psychiatrists, psychologists, they are not that many. Maybe even last time I checked, it might be that this has updated now, but we had about maybe 3 psychologists in the whole of Malawi and about 6 psychiatrists. It might have changed, of course, but these were the numbers that we've been working with. And this is a sad reality. And if we compare as well to other countries, I've been to Zambia, for example, and had a session with someone from Zambia. It was the very same thing. Not enough mental health professionals, a lack of mental health institutions focusing on mental health, and a lot of stigma as well, hindering people from accessing mental health services. So I would just maybe highlight it in that way.
Can you elaborate on the specific challenges faced by Malawi in addressing mental health issues compared to neighboring countries or anywhere globally?
I would say that in Malawi, especially when it comes to the youth, there's a very big gap there because a lot of young people, from what, of course, I would take it from my perspective, from the young people that I've worked with, this is the kind of feedback that we've received. They've felt uncomfortable going to hospitals. We do have some structures within the secondary health care, like in district hospitals, where young people can access mental health services. But most of them would mention, for example, that if they go there and someone sees them maybe going to a mental health unit, they'll be like, they'll feel uncomfortable because people will now start maybe saying some certain things that are very negative. And if we look, of course, there's not that much difference with maybe other neighboring countries, because again, as I already mentioned, I've had some conversations with some young leaders in various countries, and they also mentioned the very same sentiments around mental health. In terms of service provision, sometimes a lot of the young people, a lot of young people don't know where to go. Even as I'm saying that, there are some units within the district hospitals, but to find a young person who actually knows that they can go to the hospital for a mental health service, it's very hard for them to know where to go. So again, that really makes it difficult for them to access mental health, and the treatment gap there in terms of mental health treatment, it's very huge because most of them do not go to seek support in mental health facilities. In terms of even the organizations that are operating, they are there, but I feel like there's need for more, a collective action of some sort. In terms of even the budget issues, mental health is not really prioritized on a national level now. Less than 1% of our health budget goes to mental health services. or mental health treatment. So that still is a very big problem as well in terms of coming up with solutions surrounding mental health. So there's a lot of advocacy that needs to be done to increase access to services, increase the number of mental health professionals, ensure that those that are trained in mental health, they actually provide mental health services rather than maybe going and providing general health, general physical, like physical health services. So those areas need really interventions, a lot of gaps, but it needs collective action rather than everybody doing their thing by themselves.
The next question that that I'm going to ask is, something that you briefly mentioned. But it's about cultural, beliefs and societal norms. What I've noticed across ethnic cultures of difference, across various different ethnic cultures, it is a taboo. It's there's a lot of stigma behind it. Like even, if you go to, like you said, if you go to a mental health service to access support, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you eat this and this and this and it'll make you feel better? This is really, there's things that prevent people from getting support, and there's some things that are specific to certain cultures. So, what cultural beliefs or societal norms in Southern Africa contribute to the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly among the youth?
I would mention one area that I feel is very, very common here in Malawi. One of maybe the beliefs, sometimes when people have like a mental health condition, especially in the rural areas, people associate that with some superstitious beliefs, like maybe your ancestors, for example, they are against you, that kind of a belief. Or maybe there's witchcraft involved in all that. Somebody is trying to bewitch you. Those are the kinds of things that normally pop up in most of our communities. And at the end of the day, you find that maybe instead of referring that person to a mental health service provider or to a primary health care center, they end up using some other means to bring out what I don't know what I would even call them. Maybe demons. I don't know whether this is an even good way to frame this, but to bring out whatever thing that is within that person that is making them feel unwell. So these are just like some beliefs that we have normally related to witchcraft and that hinders a lot of people from now accessing primary health care services or just mental health services in general. So I believe this, I've explained it more in a context of Malawi, but perhaps in other neighboring countries as well, this might also be something that they resonate with, something that is also happening there.
Do you think historical factors such as colonization or apartheid influence the perception and treatment of mental health in the region today? If so, how and why do you think?
That is a very interesting question. Trying to think around it, I feel like at the moment, if I look at my country, Malawi, I'm not really sure whether we've gone away from, our normal perception of our culture or the traditions that we have, even though maybe at some point we were colonized. I feel like there's still that, in a way, we're still holding on to our traditions, but the Western culture is still there, of course, it's still very much apparent. So in a way, because a lot of our population is in the rural areas, that's why I even mentioned that most of them, they still value these traditional elements of maybe receiving mental health support. And for those in the urban areas, it might be a different perspective altogether because maybe they're exposed to the Western culture. So they value accessing support from using medicine, like in medical means. I would say somehow maybe there's a little influence there if we look at it from the perspective of those of us who are in urban areas rather than those that are in the rural areas. But still, there's still that encouragement, I would say, to say that if a traditional way of healing someone from a mental health condition is working, some people still encourage that they use that because people have more access to those traditional solutions rather than these other solutions that are there related to maybe accessing the service from a hospital. So in a way, maybe there's a bit of influence there, but I still feel like we hold on to our culture. We still have a grounding to our culture. We still value our tradition, and we're still trying to find solutions as well and to promote solutions that positively impact someone in relation to their mental health.
A massive factor is economic disparities. How do economic disparities within Southern Africa impact access to mental health resources, especially for those who, are from a lower socioeconomic background or from marginalized communities?
A lot of times you'd find that in the rural communities, we have a lot of people in the rural communities. In Malawi, about 83% of the population is in the rural communities, within rural areas. So you'd find that most of the people in rural areas, they have difficulties in accessing healthcare services, maybe in hospitals because of the distance that is there. And most of them do not have the financial means to find even money for transportation, to get them to a primary healthcare service provider where they can access mental health services. So you would find that maybe people, because of that barrier, because they do not have enough financial resources, because maybe, for example, right now we are heading towards the rainy season, so people have priorities. They would now want to invest their income into farming rather than maybe, going a whole distance to access a health service. So at the end of the day, people still rely on the traditional service providers rather than going to a hospital because they are afraid of losing or maybe utilizing that resource or that money in transportation. And just to add on that as well, even for the referrals that are there, that are done in the rural communities, you'd find that now people are referred to a district hospital, and the distance is even more prominent than that of a primary health care center. So at the end of the day, people don't really take that initiative to go to a referral hospital or to access the service at a referral hospital because they do not have enough funds. So at the end of the day, that hinders the provision of the access to mental health services because people pretty much are utilizing maybe the funds on in other areas of their lives, or they do not have enough income to support whatever activity that they need to do or to support their access to these mental health services that are provided in distant areas.
Are there any notable partnerships between governmental organizations, NGOs, or CICs, or even international agencies aimed at improving mental health outcomes in Southern Africa?
Yes, those are very much there. Again, speaking from the perspective of Malawi and from what I know, the Ministry of Health usually works with a lot of non-governmental organizations. I would believe this is a similar structure in most of the Southern African countries. Usually the Ministry of Health, builds partnerships with international organizations or even, non-governmental organizations or other civil society organizations just to build up the structures in terms of mental health. But again, I think what is really important is to just bring in those efforts, because sometimes, yes, the ministry is working with all these organizations, but are these organizations working with one another? Do they understand what the other organization is doing, what sort of impact they are making within the community, so that they do not replicate the initiatives that are already there on the ground. I think those are the areas that really need to be looked into, because as much as there's that umbrella of an organization that is overlooking all these things and maybe regulating the space, but they still need for the organizations now, the grassroots organizations, to also find a means of working together and ensuring that whatever effort that they are putting in promoting mental health or providing treatment services for mental health, it's more of a collective action and not every organization working in a silo. So I think in a nutshell, that's what I can mention. The support is there, the collaborations are there, the partnerships are there, but maybe there's need for a proper structure so that everybody within the field works together, knows what is happening, maybe works together in terms of sharing resources or information or research findings, so that at the end of the day, it's more of a collective action.
How does, urban and rural divide impact the availability and quality of mental health services in Malawi?
In Malawi, as I mentioned earlier on, you'd find that most of the services, maybe in terms of access to mental health services, you'd find that those that are in urban areas, maybe they might have a better opportunity of getting a mental health service from a mental health professional, unlike those that are in rural areas. In rural areas, mostly we depend on the primary health centers, and sometimes these centers do not really have enough human resources, I would say. Maybe they would have like one nurse stationed there and some maybe some clinical officers, and sometimes even not maybe someone who might really have the time to address mental health challenges. So at the end of the day, you find that they mostly provide physical support. They mostly provide maybe the general physical support to people who visit the facilities. So at the end of the day, you'd find that there's maybe more of a gap within the people that are in rural areas in terms of accessing support, unlike those that are in urban areas. And just to add as well, maybe for the urban population as well, because of the internet access, maybe to the internet access to phones, which is more prominent in the urban areas. These people located in urban areas might have more better opportunities to link up to maybe service providers, to even maybe find some self-help guides within the digital space to support them as they go on their journey of recovery. So there's more better access in the rural, in the urban areas, I mean, unlike in the rural areas. And it would take strengthening the structures within rural communities, within the primary health care centers, and NGOs coming into the primary, into the rural areas to bring in some innovations there, so that people can also access support in those areas.
How does the media over there portray mental health? And to what extent does it influence public perception and awareness from your perspective in the work that you have done?
At the moment, I feel like media has improved in the way they are presenting mental health or mental health challenges. Unlike in the past, maybe in the past it was more graphic. Maybe when they are even sharing issues to do with suicide, it was a bit more graphic than it is now. Right now, there's a lot more of awareness. I think a lot of advocacy has been done by people within the mental health space to just share with the media teams what exactly is the best practice to share information related to mental health, or to share news related to mental health. So I feel like there's been an improvement in that area, because a lot of the media houses are now portraying mental health in a way that, it's not stigmatizing. It's more of encouraging people to seek support when they need it. But still, there's a lot of work to be done, because even though this information is shared, in media, like for example, on social media, you'd find that some people are still commenting in a negative way. So a lot of awareness still needs to be done among people. But I feel like the media is going towards the right direction, but we still need to do a lot of work in disseminating information, the proper information to the masses, so that as they are also commenting, they bring out encouraging sentiments rather than statements that would hold somebody back from even sharing their struggles.
What efforts are being made to integrate mental health education into school curriculums in Southern Africa?
In Malawi, I would focus again in Malawi because I have a better understanding of what is happening here. But I believe that it would also be similar to other contexts within this Southern Africa. In Malawi, within the education sector, I feel like there's still a lot of work. I think I had mentioned earlier that even for us, our efforts, we want to integrate our services within the school setup. Because when you go to these schools, for example, you know, in Western countries, you'd find that a school maybe has a counselor there who is stationed like full time to provide mental health support to the students. But here you would find that we do not even have those kinds of services. If you look at our curriculum as well, there's a subject that is there, life skills, has some aspects of mental health in there, but it is not well defined. It's not to the extent that I would say, you know, we are promoting mental health as we should. We are pushing this into our curriculum as it should be, giving it the kind of visibility that it deserves. So there's still a lot of work, a lot of advocacy that has to be done to integrate maybe a certain maybe subject. On my end, I would love to see a subject maybe fully focusing on mental health introduced within like the secondary school setup, having mental health resources like books available in the libraries, in college setups, and also ensuring that within these colleges, for example, or these secondary schools or primary schools, they have those points of contact if someone has a mental health condition or has a mental health challenge. Again, looking at the teachers in these schools, especially maybe in primary and secondary schools, they do have an aspect of mental health. They are taught mental health as they are doing their studies, but they need more refresher programs to ensure that as things are changing in our environment, they're able to respond to those changes. They know what to do as to respond to certain things that pop up within their schools. So there's need for refresher trainings as well for the teachers so that they are more able to respond to whatever cases that they get and refer them to institutions that are that provide mental health services. So yeah, that's how I view the whole setup in schools here in Malawi.
Often in, like country, it's an emphasis about gender roles in the Western world, but more so in, in you know in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, there's more of an emphasis on gender roles and expectations. How do gender roles and expectations contribute to the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly for young men and women? And how did you notice in your work with them, what did you notice the impact it had? Does that make sense?
Yeah, in Malawi, we do have, you know, those definitions around gender, you know, like in terms of even the activities that one is supposed to be doing. For example, the role of a husband or the role of a young man might be that of a provider. You know, they're being groomed to be a provider. They're being raised up to be a provider of you know their home and their families. So at the end of the day, there's more emphasis to boys for them to be more of have a strong attitude. I think that's what I would call it, to be more self-reliant. They should be able to find solutions by themselves without engaging with other people. And this has really impacted most of the young men because they now fail to share. If they have a challenge, maybe an economic challenge, maybe they do not have a job, just an example. They fail to now express that, to tell maybe their families that, okay, at the moment I cannot be able to provide for you because I'm unemployed. They fail to express all that, and at the end of the day, it's more like they suffer in silence because they're afraid that if they mention anything, they will be viewed as being weak, not being able to respond or to take up their responsibilities. On the other hand, for women, for girls, they are more expressive. We are more expressive because, again, of the way we've been raised up. We're more encouraged. If a girl cries, nobody will say anything. It would be like, okay, yeah, it's in the nature of a girl to cry. But for boys to cry, then that would be viewed negatively because they're supposed to be strong. So for girls, because of that very element, that there's more acceptance to them showcasing their feelings, showcasing whatever challenges that they are facing, you find that most of the women, most of the girls, they are able to seek help earlier than the boys. And at the end of the day, even in terms of our numbers, when it comes to suicide cases, you find that most of the suicide cases, most of the people that die by suicide in Malawi are men rather than women, because women, they are more expressive. They will tell their friends, they will seek support. But for the men, they keep all their troubles to themselves and they don't really go for support when they need it. So I feel like that has really hindered. It plays a role in how people respond to situations that they are facing and how they take an initiative to access mental health services.
Have there been any significant changes or advancements in mental health policy or legislation in Malawi in recent years?
Yes, yes. I feel like there's been some progress there. We do have a policy now, a more updated policy. In the past, we had a very outdated policy, so that has been rectified. We're moving towards, you know, trying to even establish that collectivism that I talked about, whereby organizations would work together, like an association of some sorts for all organizations that are within the mental health space, so that we can be sharing information, sharing best practices. So in that context, in that area, I would say that there's been some way forward. There's been progress, but there are some areas that we are still lagging behind. For example, issues related to decriminalizing, those people who maybe try to take their lives. Sometimes these people, instead of maybe referring them to a mental health mental health professional, a mental health intervention, you find that some of our laws, they sort of direct that if someone tries to take their life, they're supposed to be locked up in prison. But still, I feel like there's some progress still, because even if you look at media, the way they're presenting it, even if we look at the initiative that the policemen are taking related to this, you'd find that if there's that kind of a scenario, most of these people are now being referred to a mental health institution rather than maybe taking them or locking them up, which I feel is an important step, but we still need to reflect that in our policies, in our regulations. So that step is being taken, yes, but in terms of the activities that are being done, there's a positive step forward. But in terms of the policy element, it still needs to be reflected. There's still need for that change in the policies so that people can now, feel more comfortable seeking a mental health service. If they are taking their life by suicide, they should know that, okay, there is support. I can go to a mental health institution to seek help and not be afraid of being locked up or being taken maybe to a prison cell. So in terms of the policy, I would say there's some right steps being taken, but more still needs to be done. There's still more work that has to be done. Even on when it comes to mental health financing, we still need to put in more emphasis so that a lot more resources can be invested in mental health. More priority can be placed in the provision of mental health services.
What are some of the pervasive misconceptions about mental health in Malawi, and how can education and advocacy efforts effectively challenge these beliefs?
There are a lot of beliefs. One of them that I can highlight is an attitude that people have. Maybe, when someone has a mental health condition, people say that, okay, this person is weak. That's one of the elements that comes out a lot. Perceiving people who are suffering from a mental health condition as being weak and not necessarily suffering from an illness. So at the end of the day, this has really affected a lot of people from seeking the support that they need. And it's something that I personally have been advocating for, something that I would want to see changed, because that doesn't, define you as an individual, as a person. It does not define you. If you have a mental health condition, it doesn't mean that's it. You can still recover from a mental health condition. So that's one of the areas that I try to bring more awareness on. And sometimes people also associate people with mental illness to, maybe they say that this is more of a Western sort of condition. As Africans, as a Malawian, you're not supposed to suffer from a mental health condition, which is not true at the end of the day, because we are all humans. As long as you are human, we all experience mental health. We all have mental health. Mental health is a part and parcel of health in general. So we need to also shift that element of considering mental health as being something that we shouldn't prioritize, and maybe putting more emphasis on physical health. So that's also another area that I also really advocate for, something that is there in terms of the beliefs that are there. And I also try to encourage in terms of seeking support, that you can seek support from a hospital, for example. There are service providers, there are mental health service providers out there qualified that can assist those that are suffering from mental health conditions. So that's also something that I have been trying to advocate for, that you shouldn't be afraid. You can seek support from a mental health professional, and you can recover from mental health conditions. So in a nutshell, those are some of the areas that I've been trying to advocate around.
How has iMind, challenged stigma surrounding mental health through, your educational and advocacy efforts in Malawi?
We do a lot of activities in schools. Maybe one of the areas that I've already talked about, the Fresh Minds radio program. We try to educate the masses using that platform. And we also use social media, because our target audience is pretty much young people. So we also try to educate young people using by utilizing social media platforms, so that they know what mental health is and what it isn't, so that they know where they can go for support. So we've been doing a lot of awareness sessions, even in-person awareness sessions in schools, using a lot of arts as well, because we know that sometimes people relate more to storytelling, they relate more to artistic means of sharing information. So we've been trying to utilize, for example, like music to share mental health information, to ensure that we're destigmatizing mental health, and utilizing painting and poetry, all these elements, just to ensure that we connect with our audience. And we also try to bridge that gap as well with the older generation, because we know that sometimes, as a young person, sometimes the first point of contact might be your maybe a religious leader, just to give an example, your parent or your teacher. So we're trying to also ensure that we educate the people within our communities, the traditional leaders, the religious leaders, so that they have an understanding of what mental health is. They know where to refer young people who are facing mental health challenges, where they should go to seek support. So those are some of the areas that we've been working around, ensuring that we build up these structures within our communities, these pathways, so that at the end of the day, when a young person has a mental health condition, or maybe they have a mental health challenge, they're able to access help as soon as possible, so that it doesn't, grow into something that might not be manageable.
Can you discuss any innovative approaches or campaigns implemented by iMind to promote open dialogue and destigmatization of mental health difficulties?
One of the most prominent projects that we've had is the Fresh Minds. As I mentioned earlier, I think that's one of the biggest campaigns that we're running, one of the biggest projects that we have. For us, it's the uniqueness of the whole program, because it has various aspects that it looks into. There's the awareness aspect, where we are trying to raise awareness using the radio program itself, using live shows that we air every Saturday. At the moment, we are not airing it, but we just recently finished airing season 3. So for that one, we reached out to a lot of people using the radio platform. And we also had mental health clubs in our communities, where young people were sharing experiences. And during that very same program, we also allowed people to be sending through messages, sending us, calling us, for example, if they need mental health support. It was an element that we had integrated into the program, because we wanted to ensure that as we are raising awareness, people can also have access to peer support services. They can have access to referral services to mental health professionals. And during that very same program, we also had another, I would call it a project activity within that whole program, whereby we invited young people to share with us content on mental health using various storytelling means, like singing, poetry, drama. So we had all these elements. We would share these elements during the session, the episodes of our program, and it helped a lot of people to really understand mental health, people to really understand where they can go to for mental health support. It helped to also destigmatize mental health, especially for our club members, because we would also assess in terms of their attitudes, how have their attitudes improved since the time they started listening to the program to the time when we finished airing that particular season. So that is one of the areas that I would say we've really made a lot of impact, and would want to continue growing that. We've received a lot of positive feedback from mental health professionals, from some of our partners, from even our international partners, because of the kind of impact that it has had on our nation and on young people as well, especially those that we are working in.
What role do family dynamics play in perpetuating or combating stigma surrounding mental health within Malawi households?
Family is very important for us in Malawi. Most of us, we have more of extended families. So there's usually that support system that is there. I think support is always crucial when it comes to dealing with mental health conditions, when it comes to even seeking support, because it needs to start from the family setup. If you tell your parents or if you tell your relatives that I have a mental health condition, they need to be able to support you to seek the right kind of support. So in Malawi, I think because we mostly value family, it does make it a bit easier in one way for people to seek support, because once the family understands that there's, this is a mental health condition, and there are these sort of treatments that are there, and this is the role that we're supposed to play to assist this person to seek support. It makes things easier. It makes the recovery journey more easier. But there are, of course, some other instances. We cannot say it's common ground everywhere. Sometimes the family is not really supportive, as maybe we have already alluded to in the other discussion points that we had. Sometimes some family members might not really understand mental health. They might not understand mental health conditions. They might not want to accept when someone comes to them and shares that kind of story, or shares that they have a mental health condition. So in one way, if the family is supportive, then it's good. But sometimes that support is not really there. So that means that it becomes difficult for the person who is going through a mental health condition to actually receive the help that they need. Because if you don't have that support from your family, then it's very difficult for you to take the next steps forward, to seek maybe support from a mental health professional. So it all depends on on how open your family is, on how open our families here in Malawi are. If they are open, then it's all good. But if they are not, then it becomes a challenge.
How does religion or spiritual beliefs intersect with stigma surrounding mental health in Malawi, and what role does it play in the stigmatization or barrier in accessing the support?
Again, I believe that also depends on what kind of maybe a religious body it is. We have some religious bodies that, a lot of people, when you go maybe for a religious gathering, that's where you find that support system. As I was, similarly to what I was mentioning with family setups. So sometimes people find that when they go to a religious gathering, they experience more support. They get encouraged when they are there. They get that support that they need. The community is more supportive. They provide whatever they need to support them on their journey. If even some, recommending the person to seek mental health support with a mental health professional at a mental health institution. So it all depends again on the religious body and what their beliefs are, what their values are. There are some that do not maybe encourage that. They do not really advocate for that. And you'd find that people are suffering in silence. They're not really seeking the help that they need. But I found that of recent, of course, most of the religious bodies are quite supportive. When someone has a mental health condition, I think there's been a lot of awareness surrounding mental health, and a lot of these bodies are encouraging people to seek support. You would even find counseling services being offered, within that setup of that religious institution. They're offering mental health services. They're offering counseling services. They have members who were trained in counseling, or who were trained in the provision of other treatments for mental health. So they are promoting the treatment of mental health conditions. So it all depends again on the religious body, but From my understanding at the moment, I would say most of the bodies are quite encouraging. They are building up structures to support their members as they are going through these various challenges related to mental health.
What steps can families and friends take to support those who are going through mental health difficulties?
Um, Families and friends, I think one of the important roles that is there is to provide support. It might not be the kind of support, that one would get from a mental health professional, but as long as the person who is suffering knows that I have a community around me, that is the community is able to provide maybe a listening ear. They are able maybe to even escort me to seek support from a mental health institution. That alone can be quite encouraging. It can be quite empowering for someone who is going through mental health challenges. So I feel like having good friends, having a good support network, good family members, supportive family members is the first step that one needs, to seeking mental health support. Because if your friends are supportive, then that will encourage you to go out there and seek the help that you need. But if they are not, then it becomes a hindrance. It will stop you from taking any further steps. So at the end of the day, as friends, personally as a friend, I try to be very open. I try to listen. When someone comes to me with their problem, I try to listen to them in a non-judgmental way, because at the end of the day, I know that it's only through that, if they feel that I am not being judgmental, then they will share with me their burdens. They will let me know when they're down, and I can help them. I can refer them if I must to a mental health professional. So at the end of the day, that having that foundation of having good friends, having a good support system, it's empowering. It can be what separates someone, from struggling to actually recovering from a mental health condition.
What inspired you to pursue this topic and share it with our listeners?
For me, mental health is something that I see as a calling. It's something that since I was young, I've always, of course, I got to understand it better in college. But when I reflect back on my life in my younger years, I would remember some instances where I was going through mental health challenges, but because I didn't know what it was or what name to call it, I wasn't able to receive the support as early as I should have. But I see it as a calling because I don't want to see other people going through that same journey of not knowing what they are going through, not understanding what they're going through. I want to create that bridge for them. If I'm able to advocate, if I'm able to share my story with others, if I'm able to create a platform where young people can meet up and seek support in a group setup, then I'm willing to do that, because I know that being in good mental health, it's something that will ultimately make someone to be more productive. If you are experiencing positive mental health, then you're more likely to advance in whatever you're doing, be it in school, be it at your workplace. You'll be more productive. You'll be contributing more to the development of your nation, to the development of your community, as well as to advancing the economy of the world that in a general perspective. So for me, it's a calling. It's a calling that I cannot keep or that I cannot confine. I need to share this with others. I need to ensure that other people receive the kind of support that they need. If they're facing a mental health challenge, they should receive the support they need. There should be a good environment for them to seek and access support when they need it. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's become part of my purpose in life. ensure that that gets done. And I hope that I continue to create more solutions around that.
Looking back on our conversation, what's the most important takeaway or message you want our audience to remember?
I want them to remember that they can contribute to the mental health space. As I mentioned already, mental health affects everybody. It's part of the well-being of an individual. As long as you're human, mental health is part and parcel of your well-being. Because even in the definition of health, it's included in there. You know, you have to be mentally healthy, physically healthy, socially healthy. So I want them to remember, starting from that standpoint, that everybody experiences mental health. And when someone is going through a mental health challenge, there are a lot of avenues where they can seek support, where they can find help. And each one of us can advocate for mental health. Because it affects us all, we can all advocate for mental health. We can all be there for our friends, our colleagues at work. We can try to understand what mental health is by researching about it, by sharing information, by volunteering within our communities, starting up maybe organizations or related to mental health, and even donating to mental health causes, so that at the end of the day, everybody, you know, has that access to the support, the mental health support that they need. So at the end of the day, I think what I am saying is that there's no health without mental health.
Are there any upcoming projects, events, or resources you'd like to share with our audience?
I think I've already shared most of them. For us, we're trying to expand more in providing mental health services within schools. That's one of the areas that we are really building towards. We're trying to also collaborate more with other organizations in other countries to just research, you know, share information, ensure that we share the information with other bodies, other people that are interested in this subject. So if in terms of looking out to what we're doing, look out for more research projects from us. Look out for more storytelling projects from us. A lot of partnerships as well that we are hoping to create. And if maybe those of the audience who are listening to us, maybe they are also interested in this area of mental health, know that we are open to collaborating and exploring more ways on how we can promote mental health in the communities, in our communities, and in the world as well.
Where can our listeners find you or connect with you to stay up to date on your work?
They can find us we are on a lot of platforms, social media platforms. You'll find us on Facebook, iMind Malawi. You can search iMind Malawi on Facebook, Instagram, iMind Malawi, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter. You find us on LinkedIn. We also have a website. So if you just search iMind Malawi on all these platforms that I've mentioned on the internet, you find our pages there, and you can connect with us through those platforms.
Finally, what is one thing that you're grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful for my life. I'm alive, so that's a good thing. I'm alive. I feel good today. I've had this session with you, so I feel motivated to do even more in this area of mental health. So I'm grateful for the gift of life and for connecting with others in this manner, for connecting with you, Raise-Me. And yeah, just breathing in fresh air. Very grateful for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you so much.
As we wrap up today's enlightening conversation, it's clear that the journey towards mental wellness in Southern Africa is both challenging and full of promise. We've delved into the cultural complexities and stigmas surrounding mental health, shedding light on the barriers that impede progress in this vital field. But amidst these challenges, there's hope. hope in the tireless efforts of individuals like Mercy and organisations like iMind, who are courageously leading the charge towards a future where mental health is not only understood but prioritised. We heard stories of resilience, communities coming together to support one another, and of the transformative power of education and awareness. And as we reflect on these stories, let's remember that each of us has a role to play in this collective journey. So I urge you to take what we've learned today and turn it into action, whether it's starting a conversation with a loved one, supporting a local mental health initiative, or simply spreading awareness on social media. Every small step counts. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as this allows us to continue the work that we're doing. And thank you so much for watching today's episode. So stay iconic until next time.